meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. This is a city council workshop. Let's call roll, please.
Mayor Mangarelli.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Scholl.
Here.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Present.
And I am assuming that Councilmember Roosing, Councilman Sischka, and Councilman Tenney are going to be in shortly. So we'll get started without them.
Okay.
It's a big assumption.
All right. We have one item, Mr. Woodfill, talking about the budget again today.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Mark Woodfill, Budget and Finance Director, for those of you who don't know me. This is the second budget workshop meeting. We had one last week where we went through a significant number of slides. Today I wanted to hit some of the high points and then address a couple of questions I received in emails since the last meeting and address those points, and then anything else Council would like to talk about. Just a quick reminder, budget process has been going on 5 months now. Last week, the 18th, we had the first workshop, and again, today we're on the 25th. The full budget detail by department is out on the website for people to look at, as well as the capital plan, the full 188-page capital plan, which includes the budget year of next year, as well as 5 additional years. Explanation of the projects and all that is out there. Checked stats, as accountants tend to do, and not a whole lot of traffic on our webpage for next year, or for the current year budget process. Hard to believe, I know. Again, we will continue to stay with a summary wide as we go. There's uncertainty. We did the 3-year comparison because of that. And of course, the structure is set to keep the service levels the same. And as any questions come up by council or the public, please contact my office. We love to talk about budget. Quick summary: class and comp that council studied and approved in January is included in this budget. There were 7.25 new positions, 3 conversions, long-time temporary positions to permanent. Training that was frozen during the pandemic has been freed up. The American Rescue Plan funding has been included. We are working with the League and the National League and the Treasury Department to get the rules on that. Once we have clear rules, we'll come back to council and we'll explain how we're going to do that and what we can use that monies for. Again, the capital budget is in there, which we talked about significantly last week. A quick look at the overall budget. Here's the budget: $228,444,604 for next year. It's a 3.8% increase. As you can see, we have significant contingencies in there, which are needed for various things that come up throughout the year. We got 12.5. Knowing that there's always things in relation to different projects or different opportunities, whether around the airport or anywhere, of something the council may want to act on. If we do not have the budget appropriation, even if we go out for loans, we are not able to move forward on those. I am thinking that we may want to, at least in the tentative budget as we work through June, include possibly another $10 million in contingency. Just until we know more, that can be taken out at the final budget approval later on the 22nd of June. Trouble is, if we do not include it in the first tentative budget, the budget cannot go up from there. So if something were to come up that this council wanted to move forward on, we would not have the budget appropriation to do that. It's not a matter of cash. We would still have to borrow money if any significant project came, but there would be no budget appropriation. So no way that could be acted on without foregoing other projects. So something to think about that I will probably bring forward with the tentative budget on the 8th, and we can discuss it further from there.
I understand you correctly. You are suggesting that we increase the contingency an extra $10 million?
I believe it would be a good idea, just so that capacity is there in case council wants to move on another project. Again, we use the example of the movement on the city hall this year. the new city hall. That wouldn't have been able to be done if we didn't have a contingency in there. So if there's anything else like that.
If Councilman, if you feel like there's some moving parts going on that we're not really talking about yet, what Mark's saying is you have to have the capacity in the budget to act upon those moving parts.
Doesn't mean you have to use it, or it wouldn't be used.
If it's not at least planned for, budgeted
You
for,
can't do anything for the.
you can't take advantage of any grant or project that might be needed.
Yes.
Or gift or anything, yes.
It's just something you have to think about over the next few weeks.
Councilmember Rusing, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilman Good for asking for another session so that we can clear up a few details here. Number one, I was wondering if we could just have a discussion about the CARES money that we received and where it went, and also talk about our ARC contribution. There's two parts, the annual required contribution and then the second part, and just kind of update us as to how that's coming along.
Okay, the CARES money, the previous CARES money was done in fiscal year 20, freed up general fund capacity, which was available in 21, was used to do various things, including the Granite Creek study, the North Prescott area study, those type of things.
Do you want to reference the most recent money that's not CARES? It's
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan, which we were just talking about a minute ago. Again, we've budgeted for the first half of that to come in. We are working with the Arizona League of Cities and the National League of Cities, as well as the U.S. Treasury Department, to get clearer guidance on what that can be used for. We have encouraging word from them, but we have nothing definite. Once we have definite rules that we feel comfortable or accurate, we'll bring all that discussion back to council and talk about what we can do with that money, or what you guys would like us to proceed.
And it's mostly infrastructure projects?
There are different options, and again, that's what we're trying to get final answers on.
Okay, and then how about the budgeting for the ARC?
We went over this last week. This shows the ARC. On the bottom there, we have the ARC, the normal cost, which is the cost an employee earns in a year. So as a police officer or firefighter works, money is needed to have his retirement or her retirement when they retire. That's normal cost. The unfunded liability is amortization of the unfunded liability. That amount comes out of the general fund and other operating funds.
Well, that's
Yes.
decreasing?
Yes, as we pay off our ARC, it's amortized over a closed period of 20 years. I think we're down to 17 or 18 now. So it does go down because we were making great strides in getting rid of the unfunded liability. Up here you can see the dedicated tax, and that is coming in well above projections. So like we talked about last week, we're well on our way to achieving and being able to turn that tax off a year or two early.
And we incur an interest on that. Do we incur an interest on that unfunded liability?
No, an unfunded liability is an actuarially determined number, and as part of that, they do present valuing of future year liabilities, and there is an assumed earnings rate in that calculation, and that's kind of what we talk about. The interest is that assumed interest rate that those future liabilities are discounted by. 7.3, I believe, is where we're at right now. They had been taking it down each year. Councilman Good and I have both expressed our concerns with them that it's still too high, and hopefully they will take it down. This year they were focused on changing payroll growth assumptions, and a few things like that, which have significant impact on your ARC payment of different entities around the state, especially when you're not paying off the unfunded liability as quickly as Prescott is. But I do think they will address it in the next year or two.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. So the questions that came up to go into more detail on, we had two that were brought forward. The ADOT Highway 69 widening, the city's contribution on that. And this in the centralization plan, there's an effluent tank that is going to be located near the roundabout near the lake, and there was a concern raised on that. So with those two areas, I will have Craig Dossett come up and walk you through some of the discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, Craig Dossett, Public Works. So we'll, if it's all right, we'll start out of order, being that we have this is the centralization project up here first. So this is a aerial image of the SR 89 Willow Lake Road roundabout. So Watson Lake Park entrance is, it won't show up there, is to the right of the picture. The large light colored area over there to the right, that's the horseshoes pits over there on the entrance. So the yellow lines are parcel lines. So
Yellow lines are what?
yellow lines on the image here are parcel lines. That's the property lines. And when does this have? So right up in here, you can kind of see like horseshoe, looks like it was go-kart track. But here, this is the city property line there, and then down here, and all of this. So all of this is city property. What has been envisioned pertaining to this project to include the new effluent tank would be up here in this area, in the far upper corner of the property, tucked in here behind the business that fronts SR 89. The benefits to that is that allows us, as we go forward with centralization, it will allow us to maintain our A+ effluent quality by having it in a closed system versus the open reservoirs that we have along Prescott Lakes Parkway right now. Right now, we treat the water, we put it into those reservoirs, and then we have, lots of waterfowl that enjoy that. So there's some degradation in regards to the quality of our water after we release it out there. With centralization, all water produced will be A+. We keep it inside of closed system and a steel tank or concrete tank. Then we maintain that quality. It will allow us then to convert Watson Lake Park over to effluent on the irrigation versus using domestic water on the turf area within the park area there. The pump station that's at the corner, the northeast corner of the roundabout right there, that already has a stub out planned when that was built to be able to feed the park. So this tank would float off to the side of the effluent system, feed that pump station, which then would send water. It would be able to send it up to Sundog Ranch Road for use if need be there, the Prescott Lakes Golf Course, as well as the Watson Lake Park area. So get it to, there we go. Oh, okay. So this is, a very basic image of the tank up there in that corner. Now 3 different views. So here's as you're headed north coming into the roundabout, what you can see in the center of the picture there is that pump station, and the tank is going to be over behind that pump station in the back corner of that property is the initial idea. So then again, it would be over in here behind that business, and we have a hill that's right behind here with vegetation. And this would be looking, if you're sitting on the highway and you're toward the north side of that business, then the tank would be back in this area. So that is what, on the initial consideration of the project, that's what was considered for it. Moving over then to SR 69 project, we have an existing IGA associated with that, where the city, the county, and SIMPO joined in partnership with ADOT on that project, where those 3 entities were supplementing or covering the design. There has been some additional design costs associated with that have been reported to us, and the most recent estimate that came up was $116,500 for the city. Is that
116,500.
okay? Thank you, sir. For the city's contribution with that. That's a little higher than I talked to Vince with CYMPO about a month ago. And at that point, he asked me to just hold, and he was going to get additional information from ADOT pertaining to the project. And then that's where that updated information came from just yesterday into the manager's office.
Craig, those are just design costs you're talking about.
Yes, sir. And then ADOT has, let's say, 13 million budgeted for construction.
So the big reason we got this was because when we went to ADOT, we already had it designed. Was that right?
No, ADOT is designing it. They're the
We had
part.
the money for design. I mean, that's what when we were talking with Simpo, they said that was what Chris said.
The original design contract that ADOT entered into was for the original value. As they've continued on design, there's been additional conflicts and or information that had to be done, design, research, potholing, everything associated with existing utilities. So that's where some additional design costs have come into play with their project. And the IGA set in place the partnership between the four entities. So the three entities are supporting design, and then ADOT has the funding for construction.
Right.
In order for us to, get ADOT to do this project, then it was the matter of the partnership with everyone.
Okay, we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
So just to clarify, ADOT's building this tank for us.
No, we've moved. Sorry, and I could take.
That's what it sounded like to me. I'm like, why would they do that?
We're on.
I'm missing something.
We're on SR 69 widening project.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which will be from Prescott Lakes Parkway down to U-Haul, as well as ADOT is going to put a center median through the Frontier Village area as well as part
Okay.
of the project.
So we've moved on from the tank. Gotcha.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else for Craig?
It wasn't a great segue. Just
Yeah, I missed
Yeah,
that.
I knew what he meant.
I just have a question, Craig. While you're up there, in their design phase, did they put a pedestrian walk underneath that road surface?
They are expanding the box culvert, which will include trail as part of that. So there will be a pedestrian crossing continued through that.
Thank you.
They're looking at improving. The existing box culvert has water and or ice issues.
Yeah.
So they're looking at creating a grade separation within that to solve that, as well as there is multi-use path as part of the design all the way from Prescott Lakes Parkway down through along the side of the highway in addition to the existing trail.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do you know off the top of your head the current height of the box culvert?
I believe it's only 8 feet.
Okay.
Is this the one at the foot of Bushwhacker Hill? Is that
Yes,
where? Yeah, by the mall, down, kind of across from the Lamb.
yes,
Okay, got it.
Where the circle trail goes underneath.
correct.
Yeah, that does have some significant water and ice issues.
Craig, do you want to? We had a couple. We had a request from Bill Finelli regarding 89
Yes.
and the thought process of maybe having increased bike lanes. And you and I had a little conversation about that, and maybe the timing of that, and how that would all play out over the next maybe year or two. So.
And sorry, I was letting that one slip my mind, Michael. So yes, through the PB-TAC committee, Bill Finelli brought up a concern. We always talk about potential safety issues that any of the members identify and or residents report to the members. Bill brought up consideration and wanted the committee to look at SR 89 at Deepwell Ranch Roundabout. So we're out by the airport now.
Thank you. That
And
helps the segue, I appreciate it.
as bicycles come south on State Route 89, when it's out there and it's the full rural section, there's no curb or gutter or anything on the roadway, there's a large shoulder and essentially bike lane. When you approach the roundabout, then curb and gutter starts, and then it narrowed it down. So bicycles no longer have their own path, or lane to use. They have to merge and be part of the traffic. So Bill brought that up, and valid concern and idea. He brought up the idea of adding a pathway and or large sidewalk off to the side of the roadway. And first blush said, oh yeah, everybody's looking at it, just add a path. So as part of PB TAC, then the committee recommended that Public Works bring that into the capital improvement program consideration and budget consideration. We created, Ian did right away then, created a project sheet for it and then looked into it closer. So as we looked into it closer, it was a little more complicated. We have some of the major signage in there that creates conflicts. We have some drainage structure with conflicts. There also would be potential of some retaining walls and handrail because of drop off next to that trail. So it got to be a little more complicated, but still doable. Just a matter of more things, more answers to come up with as part of the design. Also, when we get to the roundabout, then it's how to end it. Where do we take people and what do they do once they get to the roundabout? So that came into the concept as well. It was brought up or recommended by the committee in March when we were already well into the budget process, but we rushed it in order to be able to look at it. Detail sheet was created. We looked at it in the budget review process. Also, it comes into play. It's not our road. It's ADOT's road. So then we're talking about an IGA with ADOT in order to get to an agreement there. So with these things that came into play, then we have to look at and balance our resources. Is it possible for us to accomplish this in FY22? So ultimately what we came down to is we can work on it in FY22, work towards an IGA, but we did not feel that it was possible to accomplish the whole thing, so we did not fund it in FY22 because Mark doesn't want us funding things that we're not going to accomplish.
Nice.
The city manager doesn't want you fun things.
Okay.
Mark either. But.
I get blamed for everything.
And then now in hindsight, it was maybe, it was good that we came to that conclusion also, because now there's also discussion with ADOT looking at potential of another roundabout north of Deepwell Ranch roundabout. So there's the potential that we could have done this project, build something that then would maybe the same thing just gets built again and we have another new problem that's the same thing. So I believe there's potential for us all to communicate more on it and try to address it all the way through the corridor by not having it right up in the forefront and in the budget for FY22.
But put it in the budget for 23.
That's consideration, yes.
That's what we're thinking about.
Well, thanks for working with Bill on that. I appreciate it.
And just to transition back to the widening of 69, the additional 116,500 is available in this proposed streets budget. So the funding is available to continue that project with Department of Transportation.
So we wouldn't have to use any potential contingency funds
No.
to be able to support that additional design contribution for the
Not at the
widening.
116,500. And that would go with the other 150,000 we sent them.
Well, let's just
2
make
years
sure
ago.
we send a message saying we're not going to pay any more. It's every time we have a meeting, it goes up another 60 grand.
I love meeting with engineers, don't you? With that, the remaining budget process is tentative budget, which sets the maximum amount that the budget can be for next year. After tentative adoption, it cannot go up. It can go down. Is set on the 8th, and that gives sets the hearing dates. It allows staff to publish that budget in the paper, and then we go to the hearings on the 22nd and final consideration of the budget. And then after that, we have adoption of the property tax levy in July. So with that, I'd be glad to go over any more detail from last week or this week.
Questions, comments from the council?
Well, I know listening to the county's deliberation on their budget, and especially this new potential funding coming from the federal government, they're also kind of trying to figure out what they can use it for, when they can use it, and how long it takes to be committed to a project and get it built without having to potentially return it. So I know that puts a lot of question marks in there, and that's probably why having this extra contingency is appropriate, at least in this budget, because we've got not only CARES Act and the Recovery Act funding, and then this potential new funding. So it's the federal government steps in and says, here's a whole bunch of new money, and then they don't tell us how we can use it. And if we budget for it, then we find out that it can't be used for the purposes that we decided on, and it makes budgeting a little more challenging. So I think that's probably why that contingency is a reasonable number to put in there.
Yeah, I think it's worth doing. It keeps the options open for council, and we have an infrastructure bill too, potentially coming that could provide funds from the federal government.
As long as we can rely on the media to make sure that they aren't assuming that we're blowing up the budget even higher with a commitment to spend. It's a contingency option that gives us the opportunity to do some things that without that contingency we would not be able to even consider.
You've hit the nail on the head, Councilman.
We can always rely on the media.
Anything else?
Anything else for Mark? Public comment?
I just had one question for Craig. This new tank proposal, covered tank proposal over there by the Watson Lake Roundabout, what is the total cost for that you're anticipating?
Turns out that's not on Highway 69, just to clarify.
I think ADOT ought to pay for it.
I think so too.
So,
That project is proposing a budget for FY 22, 23, 24, and 25 to a total sum of $26.5 million, because it is the tank, it is pipeline, it is SR 89 widening through the Dells, and it is the conversion of the existing pipeline that's already through the Dells. It's multi-faceted project.
Kind of a component of that overall plan.
Yes,
would this be eligible for a WIFA fund?
on the
Bond?
wastewater side.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, and the first parts of that centralization we did fund with a WIFA loan. Again, those are just loans. We still got to repay them, but
they're
it is cheaper interest.
yeah.
Thanks, Greg.
I don't see anything else here for the workshop. So this meeting is adjourned. See you guys at 3.